and welcome into the presence of the Lord. I don't think you realise just how glorious it is to be in His presence. For the last weeks and months I've been thinking about how can I get closer to God? How can I enter that intimate space with Him? How can I really experience what it says in His Word, that in your presence, Lord, there's fullness of joy, and at your right hand, pleasures forevermore. And there the fullness of joy is more than, like a completeness, it's like a perfection of joy, it's like an overflowing joy, it's like a bubbling up joy that comes from somewhere deep inside. I don't know whether you have experienced that joy before. Sometimes you have a fleeting impression of joy. You know, when you look at a beautiful sunset, when you see a child smiling, when you go to visit a friend, when you see a beautiful painting or listen to a beautiful piece of music, you experience some joy, some inspiration, some encouragement, but it's fleeting, it passes away. But what is it like to be in His presence and have a joy that is everlasting, that will never end, that is limitless? The Hebrew word for joy is something like, and I'll try to pronounce it, it's shim, and I apologise to all Hebrew speakers. But as you know, in the Hebrew, the words are much richer. They have a much more deeper meaning. There's a movement in the word, there's a sensation, it's expressive, it's active. And the Hebrew meaning of joy is like an entering into something, a stepping into something that is a joyous, glorious celebration of life. If you think of the best party that you've ever been to, if you've been to a wedding celebration where people are dancing and singing because they're so full of happiness, that conveys something of the depth and meaning of the Jewish word for joy. And David, in his Psalm 16, and I often go back to that psalm, I often speak it out over my life, over my day. He knew what it was to be in that intimate place. He knew what it was to trust completely in the Lord, to know that God loved him completely, that there was nothing that was in David that caused God to love him less. He had learned to trust in God through all of the battles, all of the struggles of his life. And the Hebrew word for joy, shim, it has a sense of being separated out of the chaos and trouble of life into a special place. And there's a part in us that must respond to that. If we want to know the joy of the Lord's presence, we have to step into it. We have to believe it, we have to taste it, we have to live it, and we have to come into it each day. Come into the joy of the Lord. Come into the presence of the Lord. Experience that joy that bubbles up like a well, that bubbles up and will never come to an end. But I think when you realise that the Lord wants to have that deep, intimate relationship with you, that He wants to share that joy with you. He wants you to know that joy that chases away every fear, chases away every uncertainty, that lifts the shame from you, all of the pain and sadness and sorrow that you might have experienced in your life, all the hurt that you've received. The joy of the Lord will chase that away. Come into His presence, sit with the Lord, know Him, as He knows you. You'll never regret it.